Hey, what's going on, guys? This is a video that I've been wanting to make for a long time, and it's gonna basically just be talking about some of the do's and don'ts related to entering photos of your model kits into an online competition. So the difference between entering a contest online and in person is in person, you're in, whatever the event space might be, and your kit is just there on the table and the judges have to go around and look at it. When you're entering online, the judges can't see your model kit in person. All that we have as judges to rely on is just the photographs of your kit. So how you photograph your kit is really important. You don't want to spend a bunch of time working on a model for a competition that maybe you really want to win, or maybe you're not completely set on winning, you just want to enter just for fun. You want to still, at the end of the day, present your model nicely for judging if you're entering into a contest. And the biggest hurdle that judges have when judging an online competition is just being able to see the model really well. So the photographs are really important. The main thing is that you have to present the model in a way that the judges can see it really well. Because if we can't see it, we can't be confident that the work is good, and then we can't, obviously award you as one of the winners. So there's 5 points that we're going to talk about quite a bit in today's video, and that is the framing, background, lighting, focus, and pose. These are going to be the main points that are going to come up over and over again as we're going to take a look at some of these examples. All of the examples that I pulled up that we're going to be looking through here today are from my unicorn competition all the way back 5 years ago. So you may see maybe your photo in here, and this is the one point that I want to make here. Taking a look at some of these photos in here, we're going to take a look at some bad ones and some good ones. Either way, it's not meant to criticize or make fun of anybody's photos. So if you happen to see your photo come up in here, don't take offense to it. The whole point of this video is just to, help hopefully give you guys some tips and pointers and some helpful criticism as to how you can hopefully improve your photos for the next contest that you plan on entering online. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to take a look at about 24 examples here of poor photographs, or photos that have examples of points that I want to explain or talk a little bit more about with you guys to show just kind of where these photos could have been improved or things that could have been done better, again, according to either one or multiple of the 5 points that I mentioned before, either the framing, the background, the lighting, the focus, or the pose. So this first example here, this one has a very nice clean background, which is nice. The framing of it is pretty good. You can see the whole Gundam in there and like kind of everything of the model, except that it's just the background is too overblown. So this is a problem with lighting. The actual kit is kind of dark. You can't really see the kit very well, and it's so overblown. The background, again, going back to the point I made, as far as judging the kit, it's hard to judge it because we can kind of see vaguely what's going on there and the colors and everything, but we can't see it really in that much detail just because of the lighting. Next example here, this would be an example of bad framing. There's way too much negative space at both the top and the bottom. I can understand maybe a little bit more so at the bottom. I think maybe he wanted to show the base in this example. And that's the other thing too, just kind of a side point here. As judges, we don't always know the intent of what you're wanting to show. So you either have to, make it kind of fairly neutral in terms of your intent with it, or make it obvious in a way, make it clear what you're trying to show in it. The base is something that's really a part of this build in your mind's eyes as the contestant who's entering it. It needs to be clear, and then maybe for one of your photos, take a close-up of the base so we can know, okay, so the base should be considered as part of this. But in this case, just going off this one photo, the point that I wanted to make was just that there's a lot of negative space. And this is something I see, especially with a lot of people whose phones take when you take vertical photos, it takes really long vertical photos, and maybe it's the same aspect ratio, but except when it's vertical, it looks especially long. I don't know why, but I've seen a lot of those, and what ends up happening is you just have a lot of empty space up at the top. In this case, it's not so bad. At least it's just a nice backdrop there, where in other examples, it might be kind of like a cluttered background or something like that. So this one's not too bad. But even if you're just using your phone and you're not doing any editing or anything on the computer or anything, you should still be able to crop your photos. So just make sure you crop the photo so that, as judges, again, we're able to see the kit and see what we need to see. We don't need to see everything else that's kind of taking up space in the photo. This is a really good example of a kit that definitely had a lot of work put into it, but this one just kind of suffered a bit for a couple reasons. Number one, the focus. Certain parts of the kit are in focus, certain parts are not, and you're going to have that just kind of depending on the size of the kit and the depth of field that you're working in, so you don't always have complete control to always get an entire kit in focus. The other issue is just the pose. The Gundam just kind of looks a bit slunched over and not really in any kind of particular particularly interesting pose. So the pose is not always the most important thing, but it is something that you should consider. I mean, especially if you're going to put a lot of work into it, you want the kit to look good. And, even the best looking modifications, the best looking custom work and scribing work and LED work, and you can do all this stuff. And if you put it in kind of a goofy looking pose, it's not really going to be doing you any favors. So this is a good example of that, where I think that this photo could have easily been a lot better, just had the pose been touched up a little bit. Okay, this is a good example similar to the one we just saw, the one before last, where we have a lot of negative space at the top. But in this case, it's worse yet that the empty space that we have up in the top is actually quite cluttered, because we're seeing his background there in the background. And in this case, I understand probably the paper that he's using for the backdrop behind the model is a good idea, but you need to either use a box or something to be able to make that extend a little bit higher because of the size of this model, because he has like the Kshatriya wing binders on there and everything. I understand it's probably a large model to try to photograph, so you need a pretty large backdrop to cover that all up. But again, if you're gonna go through all that effort, make sure that you just take a couple minutes, construct some sort of box with some paper glued to it or something like that, just to give you a background that can actually cover the entire background of the photo. Or again, you could crop this photo. The background really only needs to be the white part only needs just to be a little bit higher, or you could even just cut it off right there. And you just crop it. I mean, we can still see everything that we need to see of like the Gundam and everything down there, and just cut off the backlog there in the background. Okay, next up, again, a very similar example here. It's just a couple things, cluttered background in there, and then also the kit itself is out of focus. The feet and the head, the Gundam, like the bust that it's based on top of, are in focus, when like the kit itself, which I think is what was meant to be shown in this photo, where all the custom work and everything is done on this, is out of focus. And yeah, you just have all this stuff in the background, which, as judges, whatever you have in the background, we're still going to be focused on your kit. We're not judging you like, oh, your room is messy, so minus points. It's not that, but it's just visually distracting, and it just doesn't really do you any favors for presenting your kit in the best way possible. Next one here, pretty easy, just crop that, cut off the side parts. And this particular entry, as I was looking through them, all the other photos were cropped so that it only has the white background, but this one, for whatever reason, he left that part there in the side. Had this photo just been cropped, it would have been a lot nicer, just cut off that part there on the side. Okay, this one, something we've definitely talked a lot about, more stylistic photos like this, and we'll see some more examples of this later on. But again, this type of photo is great for your social media if you want to take photos like this and put it on your Instagram or whatever, because it's a cool looking photo. Sure, yeah, definitely do that. But as far as entering a photo like this into a contest, as judges, we can't really even hardly see the kit. There's nothing really too much there for us. And I understand you wanted, in this particular example, he was showing off, I think he used like the 7-Eleven version of this kit or something, where the inner frame is in like a fluorescent kind of green color. So he wanted to show off how that glows under the UV light, which again, I understand, it's cool, yeah, but it doesn't really do anything. It's not helpful for us to be able to judge the kit. We need to judge the kit based on, your build of it and everything else, whatever other criteria there are. And I think I will say on another kind of side note here, for this particular contest, I don't remember exactly, but I think a part of the judging criteria for the beginner category especially was, a lot more weight was put on your photography. So, we did kind of want you guys to be a bit more stylish with your photography. So this is, maybe not the best example for that, but generally, unless the theme of the contest is, a photography contest, then, don't do this. It's too dark and we can't really see the kit. But, if that's the theme, then, sure, go for it. All right, this one here, another example of just could have been cropped. We don't need to see so much below and so much above the Gundam. And then the Gundam itself, even if this was cropped, it's so far away that, even if you cropped it, we wouldn't really be able to see the Gundam that well. So if you're trying to get all of the Gundam in frame, turn your camera, get closer, whatever you need to do to be able to get it in frame and get everything in focus and be able to see the kit well without so much negative space there. This one, similar example, but what I just would have said for this, if he's got like the kind of bed sheet or whatever that is in the background, might as well, whatever you're using for the background, try to just use it so that it's consistent through the background. to pull that bed sheet or whatever it is, just to make the entire background of the photo, rather than having like styrofoam at the bottom and like bed, mattress, and then pillowcase or sheet or whatever that is at the top. Just use that sheet and make it for the entire background of the photo. Would have been just nice and even background there for this one. All right, this one as well, again, just an example of a interesting lighting, interesting photo. But if stylish photography is not the theme of the contest, then again, photos like this, save it for your social media or whatever else. As far as judging it, it's hard to see the kit because we have this like lens flare going on. And it's a cool photo, I'll say, but not good for entering a contest where, again, that's not the theme. All right, this one here, I mean, kind of obvious. Not only is the background too cluttered with like the buildings and the telephone wires and the fence and the backyard furnished and everything, it's just that it's also the focus. The focus is on everything in the background. The Gundam itself in the foreground is completely out of focus. So, we also have a lot of negative space at the top, a lot of negative space at the bottom. So this could have been both cropped and the focus is wrong there for that. So, I mean, if you're taking your photos for the contest and you check the photo and you see, oh, that was out of focus, just take the photo again. Even if you're like right on the deadline and you have like minutes before the deadline to retake your photos, I would still recommend you guys to, retake your photos if you can, if at all possible, and just submit your photos, like a few minutes late. Usually I give a couple hours leeway when it comes to the photo deadlines, just because people are in different time zones, and I understand it's kind of confusing sometimes to know, which the deadline is midnight, but which time zone is that? And I always kind of leave it intentionally a little bit vague just to give you guys a little wiggle room around the deadline time. But yeah, if you can retake a photo like this. Here's a good example where, it's a nice close-up image, but it's almost too close up that it's not really, nothing is really particularly in focus as far as I can tell. So, taking close-up photos is definitely good. And I would recommend you to take a mix when you're entering a contest. You need to have a mix of full photos and then also some close-up photos, especially if you really want to show off points that you worked really hard on. So say, for example, you worked really hard on a particular customization or modification or scribing here or there, and if that's what you want to show off, take a closer detail photo so that we can really see all the amount of work that you put into that particular point or something. But for this one, again, it's like interesting framing. The composition of the photo is nice, but it's like, so I think it's just because it's so close up that the camera couldn't quite focus in on anything in particular there on that one. This one, a cute dog, and again, unless the theme of the contest is fun photos or funny photos, and I have done that in the past. I have done contests where like there was a category for doing fun. Well, I can't remember exactly what it was, but anyway, fun photos. Unless that's a particular theme of it, you send me this as like a Instagram DM or something and say, hey, my dog says hi, and I'll be happy to see your dog. But as far as competitions go, again, not really necessary for us to be able to judge your model kit. This one, again, cool use of the background. So the background is a bit cluttered, but it has a purpose. It has a theme. I can tell that this background was selected intentionally because it kind of goes with the Japanese theme of Gundam models in particular. But then you also have the people in the background, which are a little bit distracting. They don't quite go together with the background. So it's another example where I would have just, if you go and you check the photo and you see, oops, there's people in the background, just retake the photo. So just check your photos after you take them. If you need to retake it, retake it. Fortunately, we live in an era where digital photography, you're not using film anymore, so you can just retake infinitely, and it's not going to cost you anything. This one, again, just not only is the Gundam itself out of focus, you have kind of a distracting background there, and also the lighting. The Gundam, I think, wherever the lighting source is, wherever this person was standing with the camera, they were kind of blocking the light. So the Gundam, the model kit is not very well lit, and it's too close. So the focus is kind of off, and we just have a little too much stuff going on there in the background. This one, again, just a really simple example. Just crop the sides off that, and this photo would be that much better. We don't need to see the other kind of stuff on the sides, and you have it up against a white wall, which is great. You can just crop the sides, and it's that easy. Okay, this one is, use of flash. So when it comes to lighting, flash can be used to some success, but generally I would avoid using the flash as much as possible. If you need better lighting, wait until it's the daytime and go outside and take your photos outside. You have a really great light source outside, especially if it's a somewhat cloudy day, then the light from the sun is diffused, coming through the clouds, and you have some really nice lighting just naturally outside. Now again, if you're up against the clock and it's like the night of the deadline, so you can't wait until the next day for the sun to come out again, you'll just have to look online for ways to like use a flash or use like bounce cards, use like just white pieces of paper to maybe just bounce the flash so the flash is not direct at your kit or something like that. But again, if the flash is just right on there like that, you're just going to have, especially on a white model kit like this, it's all going to be blown out and everything, and the lighting's just too dark, it's too harsh. You have too much harsh lighting on that. This one is an example of the person just didn't rotate their images. So, if your photos come in like that and they're rotated for whatever reason because of how you had your camera orientated when you were taking the photo, just do us judges the common courtesy and just rotate your photos before you send them in. That's as easy as that one is. This one again here, you just kind of have a lot of clutter in the background. The lighting, if you would have taken the photo from a different angle, because this one is like a sunny day, so taking photos outside is not always the best way, because if it's really sunny like how it looks on this particular day, then again you have some pretty harsh lighting on this. And so especially taking from like a side angle, it's like half the kit is just kind of hidden in shadows here, again just because it's a black model kit. But so look out for harsh shadowing, really harsh lighting from the sun if it's a sunny day, and then we have this kind of stuff going on there in the background. This one's going to be a little bit less apparent, less egregious, but number one, this kind of comes to a point that I'm going to talk a little bit more about here in just a minute, about setting your kit in one particular pose and just leaving like that, and don't change the pose or in every single photo. In this, for example, like he took off the backpack to be able to show the Gundam and the backpack separately. If you're imagining that you're entering this into a competition where it's an in-person competition, you're going to be able to pose your model kit in one particular way and set it on the table, and that's it. And like I said, the judges go around it. Just because it's an online competition shouldn't mean that you should do it differently from that. You should just do it the same way, in my opinion. And I get that he wanted to show off the Gundam and the backpack, but just do that in separate photos. Take a photo from the front and then take a photo from the back, and then you're good to go. The other really quick point to show in this one, if you zoom in there a little bit, is this kind of hair coming off of there. So again, this is like hair and dust, especially if you have pets, it's usually pet hair. That's on there. If you have that on there, again, if you're taking your photos, check your photos before you're sending them in. If you're seeing that on there, go back and retake the photo, or you can edit that out. I mean, generally for entering an online competition, we don't want you guys to edit the photos, aside from just, minor touch-ups and things like that. But if it's like a hair coming off of your Gundam, I wouldn't mind if you just edit that out. That's fine. All right, this one, nice, clear lighting, clear focus and everything. This just needs to be cropped at the top and maybe a little bit at the bottom. That's kind of basically it for that one. This one, he used what looks like kind of toilet paper or tissue paper or something like that under the feet of the Gundam, and I'm guessing that's just like to help it stand, because otherwise maybe that tile's a little bit slippery, and especially I think this is the master grade Verkra, can be a little bit wonky. So if it's not able to stand, I understand the point was maybe to just help the feet not to slide, but just use a little piece like under the feet so it's not seen, or use like a piece of sticky tack, or chew a piece of gum and stick it under there or something. But just these big pieces of tissue paper under the feet are just, again, kind of visually distracting, and just kind of take away from the kit overall, from the presentation of that. This next example here, nothing really too much particularly wrong with the photo other than the fact that it's tiny. So again, if it's a really tiny photo and just really low resolution, again, we can't see it, so we can't really judge it that well. So make sure that your photos are of decent size. I understand that you are a little bit constrained as to what the file size that you can send through email, but as I've talked about in the past, when it comes to submitting your photos, if you guys need to send your photos just one photo per email, and you need to send 10 photos, you need to send 10 separate emails with one photo each, that's fine, you can do that. The one thing that I don't want you guys to do, just because it makes more trouble for me organizing the contest, is to send it via like a Google Drive or something like that. If it's on if it needs to go through some external link, unfortunately, more often than not, I usually run into some issue that it's not shareable, or I'm not able to view it, and then I have to email the person back and say, hey, I need you to send the photos again because I'm not able to view the link that you sent me. So it's always preferable for me, at least when it comes to judging my competitions, that you send the photos within the email directly. And yeah, so if because of the size of your photos you can't do that, more than 1 or 2 per email, that's fine. Anyway, this is another example like the one we saw before. It's a cool, stylish photo if that's the theme of the contest. If that's not the theme of the contest, though, the judges can't really do anything with this because you can't see the model kit at all. So again, just kind of, like I said before, save that for your social media. And the last example here is just, again, it's a flash, so you got that harsh lighting on there. It's kind of a smaller photo and kind of out of focus, so you really can't see anything very clearly, and then a very cluttered background there. So, okay, with those examples in mind, I think you guys get the points that I wanted to make about the framing, the background, the lighting, the focus, and the pose. There wasn't really so much in there talking about the pose, but a couple of examples where you guys could see it. Anyway, I think you guys probably all pretty well understand about how important the pose is. Generally, that's kind of the least of our worries when it comes to entering photos into an online competition. Now, on the note of the pose, though, as I was saying before, I've not had this as a requirement, I don't think, for any particular contest, but in the last contest in particular, I have mentioned to you guys that I would highly recommend to photograph your kit in one particular pose and present it that way for us. But here's just a couple of examples. So like this one example here is where we have some very interesting photos. But in every single photo it's in a different pose. And again, if I remember correctly, I think part of the theme of this contest was, interesting photography, so that's fine. But if that's not the theme, I wouldn't recommend doing this where you have a different pose in each photo just to show off the kit, because while it makes for cool photography, it doesn't make it any easier to judge the kit. Because it's clear that the purpose of these photos is not necessarily for showing off the kit to judges, it's for showing off photographs to judges. So hope that makes sense. Another example here, this one we just have a couple examples, and both of these are good kits, good examples of models and good example of photos, but again, it's just in different poses. And if this was just kept in one pose and just presented in just that one pose like that, it would have been better off. You really didn't need to have other poses included in there for the presentation of that. Okay, now let's take a look at a handful of some better examples here just to show what I talked about before, about how you don't really need a professional setup. This first example here is a good example of that. I'm not really sure what that is in the background, if it's just like some sort of cloth or something there, but it looks like it's just on like a table or something, and then just like with some black cloth in the background. This one maybe could be cropped a little bit there at the top, but otherwise, I mean, it seems like a sort of not a professional backdrop, just something kind of makeshift, but it works effectively. It's just a nice, clean, neutral background for presenting the kit. This one, it's cropped almost a little bit too tight, but it's cropped in a way so that we don't have almost any negative space. So it's very much focused on just the Gundam itself. Obviously a really nice build here. I think this was our first place winner, if not second place, one of the top winners for sure. But this one, everything's well lit, everything's nice in focus. You have a nice neutral black background, and it's cropped so that the focus is what you want the focus to be on, which is the build. This was a good example where it's utilizing outdoor lighting. So the lighting is nice on this, that we can see the kit pretty well here, and also using some just like piece of turf. I'm not really sure what that is, but I'm sure it's probably something you can just get from like a hobby supply store or whatever. And again, it's not something that you need to go out and spend money on, but if you can get, if you want to take your photos outside like this, and you can get just like a piece of fake grass like that, something that you can spend a couple dollars on, that you can set the Gundam on, so that it kind of helps kind of give the illusion that the Gundam is there outside, and kind of use a little bit of forced perspective there, then I thought that was a really nice use of just using something simple like that to set your Gundam on. This one again, just nice framing on this, so everything's clear, well lit and focused there. You can see all the details of everything really well. Neutral background, nice framing, good job on that. And this one again, not anything professional. It's not in like a professional lighting booth or with anything really special for the background or anything. It doesn't have a professional backdrop, but it's clean and simple. So even if you don't have a photo booth or a backdrop or anything to use, find somewhere in your house where you can just have a simple neutral background so that the focus of the photo can stay on the Gundam, as it is in this one. The lighting's a little bit dark on that one, but I just wanted to kind of mention about the background in particular on that one. This one again as well, another just like the one we just saw. I understand if you only can take pictures in your bedroom, find a spot somewhere in your bedroom where you can just have it with a fairly neutral backdrop there for that. This is a good example of a detail shot where, you know, it's close but not super close. The photo quality is enough that we can zoom in and see in pretty good detail there around on the legs of this particular kit. And again, the lighting and the backdrop are all pretty nice so that we can see what we need to see. We don't need to see everything because this is clearly a detail photo. So, you know, detail photos is going to be focused on one particular part of the build, and that's what's done well in this particular photo. This is a good photo of using some sort of interesting backdrop to your advantage, where it's kind of visually interesting whilst not distracting. So you have this kind of waterfall, whatever that is in the background. I think it's some sort of like water fountain or something. Maybe it's in his neighborhood or in his town or something. He took his kit there to take photographs in front of that. And it's nice. You know, this one again is fairly straightforward there. Nice kind of even lighting so that we can see the kit well enough. This could even be brightened up a little bit, just kind of overall. But again, with the white models, it's kind of difficult against a white background, especially to not have everything blown out. But good framing on this as well. And then whatever the backdrop is, if it's just a big piece of paper or, you know, an actual, like just one of those like DIY photo booths that you can get. Same thing here with this one as well. Just nice, simple background on that. Everything's clear and focus. We can see everything pretty well here. And this looks like it might be taken outside. I'm not completely sure on that, but if so, again, it's taking advantage of some nice outdoor lighting there. And the last example here, not the best example that I've ever seen of this, but it was an example that I could find in this particular contest where someone used a computer screen for a background. I have seen it done in different contests before. I think probably the best example of that was, now I don't even remember what the theme of the contest was, but somebody had a build of the HG Wing Zero Hano, if I remember correctly, and it had the computer screen utilized as kind of like this like flame effect or something like that in the background behind the kit. It was really cool. And so that is another thing that you can do if you have a big computer screen. Use that as your background, whether you just like keep it black or white or have some sort of image like this in the background. Again, don't have it be an image that would be necessarily distracting, but something like this is simple enough and it'll give you a nice non-distracting background while at least having something going on there that kind of makes sense for the photo. Like the unicorn looks like it's in space, right? So doing something like that. Okay, so those are the examples that I wanted to show off to you guys to illustrate some of the points about some things that you should try to do and or try to avoid when it comes to entering a competition online. I hope you guys found that helpful. If you have further questions or if there's anything that I can help you guys with in taking photos for this particular competition or any competition going forward, do feel free to let me know. If you have already submitted photos for this particular competition and, you know, based on some of the things that I talked about in this video, you're thinking, oh, maybe I want to retake some of my photos. You can do that. I will allow you guys to resubmit any photos that you may want to do. Just get in touch with me if you've already submitted your photos, because a few people have, not that many, but a few people have already submitted photos for the Advanced Zeta contest. And I just announced the other day that we're extending the deadline of that now to June 14th. 2023. So you still have plenty of time if you want to redo some of your photos for that particular competition. So that's it for this video, guys. Hope you found that helpful and informative in some way. If you'd also like to leave a like or subscribe while you're here, I would greatly appreciate that. If you guys want to check out some model kits and paints and tools and supplies and all that good stuff for yourself, of course, you can check the link in the video description to USA Gundam Store. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Bye, y'all.